What if I told you that every decision, every action, and every moment of attention in human history has been controlled by a single emotional trigger so powerful that billion-dollar industries are built around manipulating it? This isn't about fear, desire, or even pleasure. This trigger operates beneath conscious awareness, drives addictive behaviors, and determines whether people listen to you or ignore you completely. Master this emotional hook, and you control attention itself. Here's what nobody wants to admit. People aren't rational beings who occasionally act emotionally. They're emotional beings who occasionally act rationally. Every choice, from what they eat for breakfast to who they vote for, is primarily driven by emotion and then justified with logic afterward. The most influential people throughout history understood this psychological reality and used it to capture minds, build movements, and shape the world. They knew that whoever controls emotion controls everything. The emotional hook I'm talking about is called curiosity gap manipulation, and it's the master key to human attention. But this isn't simple curiosity. This is the weaponized version that creates psychological tension so intense that people cannot rest until it's resolved. It's the difference between mild interest and obsessive compulsion, between casual attention and total mental captivity. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly how this emotional hook works, why it's so irresistibly powerful, and how you can ethically use it to capture and hold attention in any context. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, creating content, or simply having conversations that people remember long after you've left the room. The foundation of curiosity gap manipulation lies in a neurological quirk that evolution never prepared us for. Our brains are prediction machines, constantly trying to anticipate what happens next based on patterns from our past experience. When we encounter incomplete information, when we know something important is missing but we can't figure out what, our neural circuits go into overdrive. Dopamine floods our system. Time perception distorts, and we become psychologically compelled to fill the gap, even when it's not in our rational best interest. This isn't just psychological theory. This is hard neuroscience. Brain scans show that unresolved curiosity activates the same neural pathways as physical addiction. The anticipation of getting missing information triggers the same dopamine release as cocaine. That's why you can't stop scrolling social media, why cliffhangers make TV shows addictive, why conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, and why some people can capture your attention effortlessly, while others fade into background noise. But here's where it gets sophisticated. The most powerful practitioners of this don't just create curiosity. They create what I call layered tension loops. They open multiple curiosity gaps simultaneously, resolve some while creating others, and maintain a constant state of psychological tension that keeps people mentally engaged, even when they're physically absent. Think about the most captivating people you know. They always seem to have interesting stories that unfold gradually, projects with mysterious elements, or perspectives that challenge everything you thought you knew. The first layer of mastery is pattern interruption. Human brains are incredibly efficient at filtering out predictable information. When someone starts a conversation the way everyone else does, asks questions others always ask, or shares opinions you've heard 1,000 times, your mind automatically categorizes them as safe to ignore. But when someone says something unexpected, reveals information that doesn't fit your existing patterns, or challenges assumptions you didn't even know you had, your brain snaps to attention. This might sound like starting a business conversation with, "I'm going to tell you why everything you believe about success is backwards. But first, I need to know something about how you think about failure." Immediately, you've created multiple curiosity gaps. What do they mean success is backwards? What do they want to know about failure? How do these connect? The listener's brain is now actively engaged, trying to solve these puzzles instead of passively waiting for the conversation to end. The key is that the pattern interruption has to be authentic and valuable, not just shocking for shock's sake. You're not trying to be random or weird. You're revealing genuine insights or perspectives that most people haven't considered. When done correctly, people feel like they're about to learn something important that they've been missing, and that feeling is psychologically irresistible. The second layer is strategic information withholding. This isn't about being secretive or manipulative. It's about understanding that information delivered all at once has no emotional impact, while information revealed gradually creates sustained engagement. The most magnetic people are masters of pacing revelation. They give you just enough information to understand that something important is happening, but not enough to satisfy your curiosity completely. For example, instead of saying, "I made $1 million last year by starting an online business," someone who understands emotional hooks might say, "Last year I discovered something about human psychology that completely changed my financial situation. And most people would never believe how simple it actually was." Same information, completely different emotional impact. The first statement is complete. You can process it and move on. The second statement creates tension that demands resolution. This connects to Robert Cialdini's research on commitment and consistency. When people are invested in solving a puzzle or uncovering information, they become psychologically committed to the process. They don't want to walk away with the tension unresolved, because that would violate their brain's need for closure. You've essentially created a psychological debt that they feel compelled to collect on. The third layer is temporal displacement. This is about creating curiosity gaps that span different time periods, making people think about your conversation, your message, or your presence even when you're not there. You might reference something that happened in your past that you'll explain later, or mention a future event that you'll reveal more about when the time is right. This creates mental loops that stay open in people's minds, causing them to think about you periodically as they wonder about the missing information. A master of this might say something like, "The decision I made 5 years ago that seemed like the worst mistake of my life turned out to be the thing that saved me, but I didn't realize it until last month." Immediately, you want to know what the decision was, why it seemed like a mistake, how it saved them, and what happened last month to change their perspective. These are 4 separate curiosity gaps that could be resolved over multiple conversations, creating sustained engagement over time. The psychological power of temporal displacement is that it makes you memorable. While most conversations are forgotten within hours, conversations with unresolved curiosity gaps continue to replay in people's minds. They find themselves thinking about you at random moments, wondering about the missing pieces of your story. This mental presence in their thoughts creates what psychologists call the mere exposure effect. People become more attracted to things they think about frequently, even if those thoughts are subconscious. The fourth layer is contradiction tension. Humans have a deep psychological need for consistency and logical coherence. When we encounter information that contradicts our existing beliefs or seems internally inconsistent, our minds go into overdrive trying to resolve the contradiction. Masters of attention deliberately introduce contradictions that force people to engage more deeply with their message. This might sound like, the most successful people I know all have one thing in common. They're absolutely terrible at the thing that made them successful. This statement creates immediate cognitive dissonance. How can someone be terrible at their area of success? What does that even mean? The contradiction demands explanation, and people will stay engaged until they understand how this apparent impossibility resolves. The key is that the contradiction must eventually resolve into genuine insight, not just confusion for its own sake. When the resolution comes, people experience what psychologists call an aha moment, a sudden understanding that feels rewarding and memorable. They associate that feeling of insight with you, making them more likely to seek out future interactions because they've learned to expect valuable revelations from your presence. The fifth layer is social proof mysteries. People are naturally curious about what others think, do, and experience, especially when that information is presented as exclusive or difficult to obtain. Instead of directly stating social proof, masters of attention create curiosity about it. Rather than saying, "My clients love working with me," they might say, "3 different clients have told me the same surprising thing about our work together, and it's something I never would have expected when I started." This approach creates multiple curiosity gaps. What did the client say? Why was it surprising? What does it reveal about the work? Why wouldn't you have expected it? People become invested in uncovering not just the social proof, but the story behind it. They're learning about your credibility while being entertained by the mystery, which makes the information more persuasive and memorable. The psychological principle here is that people value information more highly when they feel like they've discovered it, rather than having it directly told to them. When you create curiosity around social proof, people work to uncover the positive information about you, which makes them more likely to believe and remember it. The sixth layer is personal stakes revelation. This involves gradually revealing why something matters to you personally, but in a way that creates investment in the outcome. Instead of immediately explaining your motivations, you create curiosity about them. You might say, "There's a very personal reason why I'm so passionate about this topic, and it's not what most people would guess." This works because people are inherently interested in understanding what drives others, especially when those motivations are presented as surprising or unconventional. As you gradually reveal your personal stakes, people become emotionally invested in your story because they've worked to understand it. They feel like they know you better because they've pieced together your motivations rather than having them explained directly. The psychological power here is that mystery around personal motivation creates intimacy. When people feel like they're uncovering the real reasons behind your actions, They develop a sense of closeness and understanding that forms the foundation of trust and influence. You're not just sharing information, you're allowing them to discover who you really are, which is far more powerful than telling them directly. Now, here's where all these layers combine to create irresistible emotional hooks. When you master pattern interruption, you capture initial attention. When you add strategic information withholding, you maintain engagement. Layer in temporal displacement, and you create lasting mental presence. Include contradiction tension, and you force deeper cognitive engagement. Add social proof mysteries, and you build credibility while maintaining interest. Top it off with personal stakes revelation, and you create emotional investment in your outcomes. The result is that people become psychologically captivated by your presence, your message, and your story. They think about you when you're not there. They seek out opportunities to continue conversations with you. They share your ideas with others because the curiosity gaps you've created are so compelling that they can't help but spread them. You've essentially programmed their attention to be drawn to you automatically. But here's the crucial ethical dimension. This power comes with enormous responsibility. The same techniques that can be used to educate, inspire, and create value can also be used to manipulate, deceive, and exploit. The difference lies in your intent and the ultimate value you provide. Are you creating curiosity gaps to lead people toward truth, growth, and benefit? Or are you creating them to manipulate people into actions that serve only your interests? The most effective practitioners understand that curiosity gap manipulation is ultimately about serving the audience's highest interests while achieving your own goals. You create tension and engagement not to trick people into paying attention, but to ensure they stay engaged long enough to receive value that will genuinely improve their lives. The curiosity gaps are the delivery mechanism for wisdom, insight, or benefit that people need but might not otherwise have the patience to absorb. This connects to ancient philosophical principles about the responsibility that comes with influence. The Stoics taught that power should be used to benefit others, not just oneself. Confucian philosophy emphasized that leadership requires putting the welfare of others before personal gain. Modern psychology confirms that the most sustainable influence comes from creating win-win situations where your success depends on other success. When you master the emotional hook that controls attention, you're not just learning a social skill, you're developing the ability to cut through the noise of modern life and deliver value that actually reaches people. In a world where everyone is distracted, overwhelmed, and mentally scattered, the ability to capture and hold attention becomes a form of service. You're helping people focus on what matters, engage with important ideas, and experience the satisfaction of discovery and growth. The ultimate paradox is that the more skillfully you can capture attention, the more responsible you become for what you do with it. Attention is the most valuable resource in the modern world, and people who give you theirs are making an investment in you. Your job is to ensure that investment pays dividends in the form of insight, value, and genuine benefit to their lives. Remember, the goal isn't to manipulate people into paying attention to you. It's to become so genuinely valuable and interesting that attention flows to you naturally. When you master these emotional hooks, You're not tricking people into engagement. You're creating the psychological conditions where your authentic value can be recognized, appreciated, and acted upon. And in a world where most people struggle to cut through the noise, that ability becomes your greatest asset and your most important contribution to others.